Hey X, loving the stream as always. What's your thoughts on social media detoxes? And what's your advice for taking them? I become concerned over my mental health and I feel as though social media is a leading factor. What a great question. What could I say about that? I think it is possible to have both a healthy and an unhealthy relationship with social media. As it is with many things in life, it can go either way on the scale. And I personally, my social media use is very minimal. I use Twitter to interact with some of you. Like that's my one social media place. I don't use Instagram. I did sign up for an account though, as I might start to do some stuff on there. I have a Facebook for my YouTube, but I don't use it. And for personal stuff, I don't use any social media with exception to WhatsApp to communicate with friends and family. I know how this stuff can affect you negatively because I think I'm one of those people that can quite easily be affected poorly by social media. Okay, so I have a bad experience on Twitter as well as good experiences. But for example, someone that I follow was talking about how they take medication. Okay, and I put in a comment to them. It was a well wish. It was a, hey, I hope you can do good with this medication. I hope your therapy goes well, and I hope one day you're going to be off of this, right? And when you send a message to someone big on Twitter, a lot of people see it and they start waging in with their opinions, and very quickly will your intent be lost, probably because it's not very well conveyed, and also the same thing in reverse. It's hard to really understand what other people, the tone of their messages. Sometimes it's quite clear people are being rude and harsh, as I felt like some of the replies that I got. But the replies that I got kind of very quickly pushed me into like a corner of like, apparently I am now like antidepressants. That's why it was so weird to say, you know? So I ended up getting into this like bickering argument. I replied to one or two people, tried to be polite, tried to see their side, make it clear I'd seen their side, tried to offer something different. And, you know, like if you offer an opinion about something like antidepressants, you get into an argument because people have different views and opinions. And the reality is like stuff is so much more nuanced, and there is also just a plethora of information out there that goes in different directions. I had some people reply to me that were clearly very, very pro antidepressant, and that surprised me because most of what I've heard from the places I get my information from are pretty antidepressant. Like it's more like they talk about people being too easily subscribed on antidepressants and looking for mental like spiritual solutions to depression and things like that, as opposed to medicated solutions. And yet there are people that are like, you know, talking about having an actual chemical imbalance, and it's like, yeah, all of that's fine, but somehow on Twitter we just get split into the ends of our argument and get defensive and combative. And there's this concept called information siloing, which is like when you converse with someone and you talk about points, people tend to be very defensive and talk about like their point as if, hey, I'm really right about this, right? I know what I'm talking about. You're an idiot, that kind of thing. Because I got called at one point or another, someone said like, you don't know anything, essentially, in some words or another. But like, we don't know what information we're carrying around with us when we explain things to one another. I get a lot of my information from some quite credible edutainment channels that cite sources and do research. It's why I follow them. And so when I make a point about something, it's not going to carry the weight of, here's 2 hours of different videos and sources of information that I got this from, and here's how credible they are, right? So when you hear something that goes against your point of view, people just get defensive. And I think Twitter just acts as a very poor place in which to communicate with one another like that. Now that's one side of why social media might be bad for you, because you can end up in arguments. The other one is like vanity, jealousy, seeing people living a different lifestyle, or It's speaking to your wants and needs, exaggerating materialism, for example. These things can take place on social media. And I think one needs to have a dialogue with their inner self and learn how to step back from being in the moment of how do you feel about thing A, thing B, something that's happening to you, and be able to observe yourself. It's what I've done. It's like, hey, I'm feeling this way, right? But rather than be in that moment and, let anger overtake me or something like that, I step back and ask why, and like try to observe and try to learn. And by having that kind of inner dialogue with yourself, you may be able to better see how things like social media will affect you. And it might not be very visible if you don't have that inner dialogue. You might not realize that opening up social media and seeing, I don't know, these types of people talking about these things, or people posting pictures of themselves, like all these everyone looks happy on social media, right? And then you might be thinking, why am I so unhappy? Why is everyone on my feed happy? It's like not an accurate portrayal. So if you can have this inner dialogue with yourself where you can actually think about what's really affecting you and whatnot, you may be able to look at things like social media and go, hey, I don't feel happy with myself every time I go on here and look at social media or whatever. It's something that I went through with Facebook. It just gave me like a headache I hate learning about people's lives from their Facebook feed. It just makes me feel intrusive. It feels weird that I haven't heard this face to face, and it's really quite negative. Like every now and then, I haven't done it for years now, but back when Facebook, 2008, 2009 was like on the rise, used to spend a bit of time on there flicking through people's feeds, and then I'd just start to feel like really unhappy in a strange way. And it took me a while to realize that it was because I wasn't talking to these people. I was just learning about what they're doing through their feed, and it felt very impersonal and very intrusive, and it didn't work for me. So I think you've got to have some of that. You've got to have a little bit of self-reflection to kind of be inquisitive and ask yourself, how is this thing that I'm interacting with affecting me? And that can apply to so many more things in your life, more than social media. Anything you do in your life, anything you do is interacting with you. It could be watching a movie, it could be listening to music. I mean, how many of us get really good vibes from listening to music, right? So by having that dialogue and being observant, you might find an answer to your question. Now, what was the original question again? Like, on taking a detox, I think the problem with detoxing is that you're looking for an immediate solution. So if you're going to detox from social media, it's usually with the idea that you're then going to go back to it, right? I would personally look for change that is more strident and is more permanent. That's just me though. I would look for something where, hey, this works better for me, so this is what I'm now going to try and do all the time. Let's take diet, for example. I would love to gouge down on chocolate bars and sweets and candy. Well, I'm actually not really a big fan of candy, gummy bears and things. I do like chocolate bars. There's food that I like, pizzas, takeaways, and I know that I value my health when I don't eat those things more than when I eat them. And it's a hard road to walk because food is often engineered to take advantage of your body chemistry to get you wanting to eat it over and over again, all this fast food, junk food stuff, right? But you've got to walk that harder road. And I think if you're going to take a detox, you're doing something temporary. It's probably good to have a temporary break from social media. We could all probably do with little breaks from whatever it is we're doing in our life just to see how things could be different. But I think if you're looking for a more permanent solution, you need to have more of that dialogue than just a one-time break from it, and maybe also adjust how you interact with it. Maybe it's not about just doing a detox every now and then. Maybe it's about limiting yourself to the platforms that work best for you. Something like that, Jeez, I did just waffle on then, didn't I? I did just waffle on.